Hi, and welcome to Wrong Way, and Merry Christmas to you all. And today we'll disassemble a couple of wheels, do a tear down, and show you guys the differences between a Bigode or Gotway wheel and a Veteran. So let's get started. Wrong Way. Finally, we have our favorite cameraman back. A big round of applause for Kate. I have a couple of tools ready, hammer, screwdriver, where's the screwdriver? Screwdriver and electric, hopefully charged. Yep, drill. I thought it might be interesting to show you guys the interior of these wheels, how they are built, like what's their quality, how they're made, and yeah, I think that's just the subject of today's video. I will also make a performance comparison sometime with the Veteran against the Bigode RS, because I think that's what people are asking for, but it's not today. Okay, so anyways, let's get started with the EX, and as you can see on the left side, the pedal rod is quite tight, and on this side it's very loose because I exchanged the rods in this wheel, so yeah, this one is just easier to take out. And this is the side where the motherboard is. So to start the tear down basically, or if you wanted to change out a tire in such a wheel, first to take out the pedals you need a hex key and you need to just turn this out. So in Gotway wheels and in most of other wheels you have to take the pedals out to just have access to the inner panels of the wheel. This is for example not the case in the Emotion V11. Boom, these are the small screws you have here. Fun fact, if you get Nova pedals, these will be a lot longer. This pedal rod is really easy to take out. You don't need a lot of force. You can use the hammer a bit. And boom, rod is out. And here you have some small spacers. Just make sure you don't lose them. And maybe I'll also take a small bowl for all the parts. Now we need to unscrew all the screws, which are just regular. So let's just do that with a tool, it'll be just easier and faster. This one is too deep. Alright, I think this should be everything, and you don't need to take the screws out necessarily, but there is glue, a bit of adhesive holding down the battery to the external shell, so sometimes you need to just a little bit more force to pry it open. Oh yeah, I forgot about these two. We tried to open the EX without getting the pedals off, it doesn't work. Okay, so just like this, pry it open. One screw is still holding up somewhere. Is it this one? No, it's not this one. Is it this one? Maybe it's just the adhesive. Yeah, it's the adhesive. And it's this screw. Alrighty. Boom. I want to show you like one screw. So this is the screw holding the wheel, or the shell in place. There's several of those and only one type is a difference, and this is this one. So this is the screw in the middle of the shell, and this is sort of like a wooden screw just getting into the plastic. So you can see here that on the EX we have these threads here, and that's cool that there are threads, but on these threads on the middle there are none. And now this is a demo wheel, so things might change in the future. Now the EX is pretty interesting. And all Bigode wheels are a bit different, but I can just show you around what's what here. Now, the cable arrangement looks a bit messy, but it works pretty well. The gauges are right. Everything is also sealed in place. So if you ever want to make a motherboard swap as well, you need to first disconnect this wire, which is the battery connector. I think it's an XT60 plug, or XT90. So then you just need to get this out. Boom, and then turn the wheel on for a second. Boom, and then the capacitors disconnect, so there's like no electricity in this circuit. If we will look a bit closer here, you can also figure out what each cables and segments are for. So this is the main motherboard sort of. This is where the power comes from, and all of these cables are for the motor, and this cable just runs over this side to the motor. So if you want to ever get a tire swap on the wheel, you need to remove these individual cables, as you can see here. I can just get one off. They're not easy to get off, which is good. Let's see. Boom. This is the connector. And remember to just make some sort of mark to then connect these cables rightly. So let's just put it in again correctly. And now you see that there are parts on the motherboard which are sealed, some others are not, because this is a swapped motherboard. We will see on the MSX later on how this looks like when it's like just not a motherboard swap. So these are the capacitors, which are huge on the EX, 560 UF, whatever that means. I think the ones on the MSP are like 190. And there is the big heatsink on the other side of the wheel, like here, and here is the radiator below the wheel. Some sort of small fan which just circulates air, and interestingly enough, behind the motherboard there's the wheel. So it's actually the outside of the shell. The air just passes through there. Now I won't disassemble that because that's a bit of work, but you can see the general idea. All the cables, they make sense. There are cables running here through the shell to the other side, to the battery, which are actually these cables here on this side. And on this side, there are cables running to the light and to the switches. Now, this is a additional motherboard, for example, for the Bluetooth audio, and I think it's also the Bluetooth amplifier. And you can see that the cables from here go to each and individual speaker on the bottom. Now, this wheel looks dirty because it didn't have any seal on this part here, on the plastic part, and water was just ingressing everywhere, so that's why it's dirty. We also put silicone ourselves actually around this whole area here, so no water can ingress into the EX anymore.
It looks bloody.
Looks bloody, it's red, but it's special like heat resistant silicone, which actually is not needed here, but we bought it for the motherboard. We figured out we use it here as well. Now on the outside of the wheel there's also a small rubber part, the seal, which is super nice to see. So the wheel from like the outside is sealed really well, but you know, I was already talking that there's a hole behind this thing where water come in, but that's a different sort of story, sort of. Now the RSs also have the seal around this wheel. The good thing about the EX is that the motherboard is also on top of the shell, so if water was ever to ingress, then you know it's not right away flooding the motherboard. So yeah, that's how it's built. A minus here is definitely all these screws that you see here are just directly sort of these wooden screws that just screw into the plastic shell. So yeah, once you unscrew them once, it's pretty difficult to have them sturdy once they're off. I can actually remove one screw for you here, like one motherboard screw. Boom, see, it's a sharp ending, and it just goes into the shell. There is no thread behind this. So sometimes you will see like a thicker plastic in some spaces that sort of acts like a thread, which is, I believe, like it looks sort of like this. So this is sort of a thread, but just made out of plastic. And this is all over the place. So we can see that Gotway pretty intelligently uses one singular type of battery pack for all of their 100-volt wheels. 900 watt hours LG 21700 pack, and in the EX there are 3 of those, so one on this side and 2 on the other side. We'll take a peek on the other side as well. And this is a solution which is really, you know, cost efficient, and actually the EX also doesn't have any issues with balance. So it's totally fine to have like control over the wheel. Maybe the bigger issue in wheels is when the batteries are stacked on the top. So then it's top heavy. That's what's a bit in the MSX. So I'll also show you that later. But anyways, this is the side. I think that's enough of info on this. So I'll just reconnect the motherboard. And usually there's a small spark if you reconnect it. And then boom, it's reconnected again. So I'll close this side up and I'll show you the other side in a second. Yeah, so it's best also to use a sort of electric drill that has like power settings so you don't break the threads. This one doesn't have a clutch, but it has a power setting. I think the thread here is broken already. And yeah, that's what happens in these wheels. These threads are not that strong, so it's easy to just screw them in and break the thread. All of these wheels, interestingly enough, are provided by myeWheel.com, well, except for the MSX. And the Veteran is bought at myeWheel, but you can also get these parts separately. So if you don't have this part, you can just directly order it from myeWheel.com, and they ship pretty quickly via plane most of the time. So that's pretty cool as well. And it's the best, of course, to have also warranty on these wheels. So this is a tricky part a bit, because you need to get the spacers in. The spacer is inside. And then the second spacer is the more tricky part. Maybe we'll do it. Okay, it's in. Perfect. It's really easy to assemble a wheel. And as you can see, it's also just really basic a wheel construction. So you're basically just standing on the motor, which are these L brackets here, which go up. And you know, the shell sort of sits on that. You just apply weight sort of to the L hangers here. Okay, so now the other side. Oh, maybe quickly I'll also show you the top of the wheel, which is pretty interesting in the EX. So actually you just need to get this part off. And this is then the light unit. It's really easy to just break it. Here is a broken cable, which broke when I fell on the EX once. There's no seal here, no screws holding it together. And this is the second part that just goes out really easy.
Second hand.
Yeah, so here it is sealed, or is it not sealed? I think it's sealed. And like a small charge port combo and stuff. And there's just exposed metal. And I don't like charge ports on the top, because it's really easy to just put something in there, or something falls in there, or water just ingresses and you get a short circuit. You need to change the port, or even more stuff in the wheel. And here on the rear we have the third part that just goes out. This is the rear taillight assembly, and here the cables also broke off. They're just inside secured. So this is the top of the EX for you. So essentially the EX has a outer shell, which is the parts on the outside, and a inner shell, which is this part, and these are also 2 pieces each. Very similar to the RS and the MSP wheels, respectively. And we'll see actually if we'll be able to open the other side, because it will be really hard with the pedals. But let's give it a shot anyways. One screw out, one to go. Oh yeah, and here on the other side you can see, check it out. It's fully covered in mud in here. So there's even no access to the screw. So I'll need to take a minute and just remove all the dust from here. So essentially I just put the screwdriver in and just did, and it's gone. So now I can just use the hex key once again to remove the screw. Just doesn't want to cooperate that much. I also don't want to destroy the threads, because that's what I can do if I don't have enough grip. Okay, back to the drawing board. I'll be back in a second. So I don't know if people will accept this method or not. Last time it just worked. I just used a drill, try to drill out the sand that is in there. Wait. Good. I think it will work. So let's see now. Perfection! Look at that. So it's a big brain thing to do. Now we go on to the more tricky part, because probably this rod is very difficult to take out. What do we do then? I think this rod is actually a bit bigger. We use the big boy hammer and we have to hammer really hard. And it's not moving at all. Now we check if this rod gets out. Yes, it still gets out. Cool. Still gets out. And remember, this hammer, 1.3 kilograms. So this is like the right tool for that. Still gets out. No, this one doesn't get out. So to get this one out, I just use a screwdriver. So this went out easier than expected, even though it might have not looked like that. But yeah, we did it. Cool. Okay, so this is the second side of the EX. Here's the beeper. You know, I don't know if they're just in a demo wheel, but there's just some holes which are... oh, by the way, here's dust on the inside, but I think it's from the outside. Where is it? Okay. I think it might be from the... No, actually. That wasn't here the last time I've seen it. Maybe, I don't know, really. Maybe there's too much space between the outer shell and the inner shell on this point. Here on the other side, two of the same 900 watt-hour battery packs, trolley handle. Everything is just really simple in Gotway wheels. So if you want to change a battery, open the wheel up, this many screws, change it out, and you're ready to go. So yeah, here is actually the pedal hanger. So if you were to change the wheel, you just need to unscrew all 6 of these, all 6 on the other side. Disconnect the motor cables, and then I think you're ready to go to get the wheel out. We're just really simple. And here are the cables running through the shell. Usually these cables are on the top of the wheel, which is good as well. On the other side here too. So yeah, that is the Gotway EX with the bent suspension. Oh look, I can re-bend it. Shit. Nice. That is not good at all. Oh my god. Well, anyways, let's now show you the MSX to show you the differences in these two wheels. So the MSX, just in the sort of main structure of the wheel, is very similar to the MSP. So, you know, it's just a bit narrower. It has a worse water seal. Like most of the screw placement, most of the screws are very similar. So I think that's more than reasonable to show you the MSX. Nilonova foot plates, by the way, on this guy. Easy to take out. Good paddle rods. No complaints. And these things are rock solid. On these, they still had the sort of shorter screw, but you will see that on the Sherman, there's a longer one now. Let's get the rods out, which will be super easy. No force at all needed, as you see. Okay, now let's remove the screws. Interestingly enough, the Gotway Nikola has different screws. The Nikola uses hex screws, which is way better, in my opinion. As usual, I forget about these screws. Boom. How simple is that? Look how much space is here. So this is the MSX 1600 watt-hour, 84 volt. You see that it looks actually very similar to the EX when it comes to just the layout. So, I mean, just the materials inside. But, you know, on the outside you have the threads as usual. But once again, very clean. Just some cables here running to the motherboard. Here's the trolley handle. So if you want to replace the trolley handle, it's also really easy. Just remove this screw and you can already get it out. If you want to have a bigger battery on the MSX, like you have lots of room for that. Not a lot of interesting stuff down here, just some foam protecting everything. and that's it. But if the batteries are on top, the balance is sadly not as good. So yeah, if they just make another MSX with batteries just like stacked here, or just a different layout, would be cool, but they use always the same battery packs, so I guess that's not happening. And these are also different cells. These are still the 18650s. They have a bit of a better discharge actually than the new 21700s, but that's a different story. Really simple, lug nuts here. That's it basically. If you want to get the motor out, just, you know, again, 6 screws. These are also high quality screws, and just get the whole thing out. No water seal on this one, on the outside. That's what they did on the MSP, but as you can see, this wheel has 2,500 kilometers already on the clock, and it's super clean from the inside. So let's just close it off and open the other side with the motherboard. Screws just screwed up. Here it's a bit more complex, as you can see. Now, most of the things are very similar in the MSP. So you can see that the motherboard is on the bottom, and this is not such a good place for a motherboard because, you know, if you hit directly from the bottom, it just touches the motherboard. There's just like not so much space. And most importantly, if the wheel gets flooded for some reason, the water will just sit on the bottom, and it's very probable that you will have a cutoff then because of a short circuit on the motherboard. But as you can see, there are seals all over the wheel, and here's the motor connection. Everything is dumped in silicone, which is really nice to see. The battery connector is here, so that's the same thing we saw on the EX. So if you want to work on your wheel, you need to get this off first, same plug sort of, and there's also like a neat space for it. So if you want to get the motor out, like once again, 6 screws, pull it out, and very similar story in the screw department, I suppose. We can also take one screw out of the motherboard, but before we do that, I want to get this cable off. And we put on the wheel. The beeper is here. It's very loud, right? Okay. So here's the beeper on the inside, and there is like no obvious hole or exit for any sort of stuff in this wheel. Not even like the things here aren't holes. So behind the motherboard as well, there's just metal. So if you touch underneath here, you can actually touch here. There is like the motherboard right here. You can touch with your finger. Oh yeah. This is the heatsink. So we can also check out these screws if they're similar to the EX. Okay, screw is out. Okay, so there is actually a thread underneath that because it's a flat screw. So apparently the MSX was better built than the EX. Pretty interesting. Yeah, again, you have to really watch out not to destroy the thread on those. Now, actually, I can feel the screw on the other side. It's poking out. Try to touch here. Oh yeah. Yeah, so the screws is getting actually out of the wheel. So this is another weak point. It's better to like seal this off, and yeah. So the screws, yeah, same thing. So here is a small ventilator which does stuff. I think not that much actually, because this is just like a heatsink. The most of the stuff is done by, you know, the heatsink on the other side, but I think underneath the motherboard itself there's plastic. So cooling on the wheels still has a long way to go. These threads can break on the MSX when you just crush the front of the wheel, or this thread especially on the top. And then you can't really like squeeze the two parts of the shells together. So that's why there is a front bumper on the wheel, because it's really easy to damage the upper threads, upper shell, so you can't close it. If you can't close it, water will ingress and the wheel will be dead. Oh, maybe the speaker is actually on this side, on the new RS. I have to remember. But still, lots of space inside. There we can see just small amounts of dust. But again, 2,500 kilometers on this wheel. Pretty cool built, pretty well built. But the flaws here is motherboard is on the bottom of the wheel, batteries are on the top of the wheel, and screws poke out of the shell itself. So now that we've seen all the Gotway wheels, it will be time to check out the veteran. And now we move on to the Shermanator. And I'm just happy because this wheel is easy to disassemble. And the biggest difference they made is Number one. Look at this screw. It's a big difference to the Godways. Yeah. Huge screws. So let's get the Nilanova out. Okay, you can see then in the new Nilanova XL, these parts are way bigger. Second one is out. Where's my screwdriver? Here is my screwdriver. Super easy to take out. Nilanova XL. And now let's... Ta-da! This is why the Sherman is so good in terms of build quality. 2 batteries next to each other. Each of these packs is 800 watt-hours with Sanyo GA cells. These cells have also a pretty big discharge. I think here's just one fuse on the side. We'll open up the other side as well, but no motherboard, no cables on the sides, nothing, batteries, trolley handle, 6 screws holding the L brackets down, and you know, behind there is the nut for the motor. The only thing a bit difficult is to get this pipe out, because there are these screws, which is actually one is loose, and sometimes these things get stuck. It's so solid and no speck of dust. This wheel has 2,400 kilometers on the clock already, all done by me, and it's just wow what they did with this wheel. It's really impressive. And we can also check out these screws. I'm pretty interested for the trolley handle, if they have what kind of screw is in there. And okay, it's a wooden screw, so it screws into the plastic. Okay, so it could be better, but I guess for the trolley handle that's good enough. And the balance is as well perfect, because we have 4 of these. We'll open the other side as well, so you can see the whole picture. Oh wait, I forgot to get this screw. Ready? Yeah. All right. Adhesive. And on the other side, boom! Clean as it can be. Same story, it's just mirrored. The only difference is that here you have the motor cables, motor wires getting out. And yeah, they're also covered in heat-resistant sealant or something, I don't know what it's called. And there's a bit sticking out, which is sad. This could be a bit better, it's like not long enough. But yeah, this is it. Very simple. Motor wires going here, and they thickened the gauge of the motor wires because at the beginning they were just burning a bit. Well, Adam, here are the batteries. On the other side there are batteries. Where's the motherboard? It's on the top, and that's how it should be. So, the cool thing about the Veteran is also that they moved the lights, and just the lights basically, because there's no speaker. The lights to the outside of the wheel. So it's just the cable coming from the motherboard. And on the taillight, it's the same thing. The cables, I mean the charge ports are in the rear here. So there's no like direct danger of water powering into them, because they're just looking to the back. And I think this is it, just 4 screws. So let's try to lift it up. But I have to take the handle off as well. Let's see. So here we have the screen connected as well, so I don't want to destroy any... here, I have the My Evil sticker holding it. Yeah. So here is the screen cable, so I just need to remove that real quick. I feel like jerry-rig in everything. I think I just need to remove this, apparently. I'll try to get these other 2 screws out as well. All the screws are different, so no way of mixing them up. Oh yeah. That's it. Okay, so now we can just... Oh yeah, I forgot, I just didn't close it. And if I just do this now... Yes. 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 And I still want to get it out, so maybe let's leave a bit. Okay, perfect. I think that will work. All right, and here we see the motherboard of the veteran Sherman. We have also same connector here for the one battery, and here's the connector for the other side of the battery. Everything is clean. We don't see so much silicone on the top as we see. Oh, here is silicone. No, so actually there is silicone. Here are the motor cables, 1, 2, 3, and here, 4. And here are some vents, which are pretty cool. And you can see that there's quite a bit of metal underneath this motherboard. You can see it maybe from the side. And the motherboard is also here connected with screws. I will check out what these screws are in a second. But you can see that from the front, check out here from the front here, you have actually a vent which is cooling down the motherboard, and then the air comes out through a rear vent as well. So everything is ultra clean. There is no speck of dust here. And once again, here is more air just getting down or up from the battery. So it's still like one compartment. I think that's a good part of that. Yeah, there's just this one cable holding in the screen. Here is also the beeper just underneath the plastic. You can see it. Here's the beeper. So it's on the top where it should be. And I probably will also drill a hole so I'll hear it even better. It's a super loud beeper as well. Yeah, this just goes to show you guys how a quality wheel would be done. Now I'll also try to disconnect the battery cables because I want to see this screw. Boom. 1, 2. I believe that's all of them. And I'll just try to power on the Sherman for a second. I'll just get it down on the floor in case it like tries to do something. And dead. This is all in the capacitors. And the capacitors are 560 something UF. So this is the same capacitor size, I think, as on the EX. The danger is just that the screw hole falls into this hole. That's something we don't want to happen. Okay, so let's just try really slowly to get the screw out. And it's a wood screw. So similar like in Gotway, but the thread looks a bit bigger. So it looks a bit more solid. But, you know, would be nice if there would be some sort of, you know, thread to lock this in place. But anyways, these fans, they look pro. They look freaking pro. Like that's not the same thing as on the Gotways. Let me just see on the back if the ports are sealed, like the charge port. Oh yeah, the charge port is sealed. Super nice. That's actually what's not the case in the V11. Charge ports are not sealed on the V11, at least the one I have. That's the Sherman. You can also see that it has here threads just going along the whole width of the EUC, just holding the two halves of the EUC together. Same thing here up in the front. If you look like from the other side, that's that. Very similar to the MSX, but in a lower placement, and the whole thing is protected by the roll bars. And here you can see the 12-volt circuit to the front light, and the rear circuit, 5-volt circuit running on here. So the Sherman has 12 volts in the front, 5 volts in the rear. And all in all, super clean, by far my favorite construction, and by far now the highest quality wheel I think that is available on the market, by far. So here's also a bit of place for the seal. Like, it doesn't really need a seal because you can see that this is just going up, but it would be nice to add one, maybe stock by Veteran in the future. So I was still figuring out the vent situation, and actually the vents go below the motherboard, so you can see here the light. There's a small crack on the top, which would be nice if it would be sealed, but it isn't. But you can see that the light just shines through on the bottom, so that's where the air basically comes through when the EUC is writing. And on the rear, let's see here as well. Yeah, it's just below the motherboard. So I guess there's just some sort of tunnel running underneath that. But yeah, that's essentially that. So you saw 3 wheels disassembled here by Gotway and by Veteran. I think you know the answer, who the winner is in terms of quality. I hope you found this video useful and entertaining. Hopefully just useful and entertaining. But if you're still here, leave a massive like on the video, subscribe to see more content like this, and thanks for watching. Thanks for Kate for doing the camera work, and I'll see you in the next video. See you soon.